welcome back to 27 Fox Place. If you're new here, my name is Randy and I make videos for cleaning and organizing motivation. And today's video is packed with organizing. I have a huge disaster in the garage that I need to work on. And the first thing that I need to do is clear a space to work. And most of what's ended up here doesn't have a place to go. Some of the cabinets are so out of hand that it's impossible to put things away, and so we just started piling everything up on the counters. I need to sort through everything, and I'm going to put aside things that I'll need to use for this project, and I'll put aside things that I need to work on later when I have more time to deal with it. And you may notice that I will put a lot of things to the side to deal with at a later time, and that's because it would take all year to organize this garage if I stopped to finish every project that I came across. Instead, I want to stay focused on getting this space to a place that functions so that I have a place to work on those projects later. So I'm creating piles for returns and things that need to be donated and things like outdated electronics that we need to recycle. And I'm going to move them out of the way so that I can focus on what's left. I'm constantly sorting through this pile on the worktop, but I never managed to get it completely cleared off. And I need to create a place for everything so that once I can see the work surface again, I'll be able to maintain it.
I don't think that I'm being that selfish right now. You said yourself you'd be breaking every vow. I can understand you're tired of this town, and I'm not saying that we have to settle down now. Just remember.
And now that I can actually see the workshop, I'm going to sweep up the dirt, and then I'll use an all-purpose cleaner to wipe down the surface.
Same world, but without us. Something made us find each other out there. Made us realize we're more than just stardust. Ignore this fact if you must, to do what your dreams are telling you to do. And I'll be out there looking for someone like you. Stardust, stardust. I'm the lazy one, so I guess I should have known. You said yourself you wanna do this alone. What if your dreams are making it hard to think straight? If you still love me, I can wait, I can wait. And remember this, we could have been stardust. Same world, but without us.
I'm going to start with this cabinet, and I need to relocate everything to another location, so I'll need to redistribute and shift some things around. But I need to empty this cabinet so that I can move all of the power tools into this cabinet. I have a general idea of where I want to put things, so I'm going to work through one cabinet at a time, and I don't have time to get everything done in one day, so I need to work in small sections at a time.
I don't think you're supposed to go. Or maybe I'm just too slow. We should just lean together.
Originally, I thought that I would be able to keep the tools in these lower cabinets, but it was too overcrowded, which made it difficult to get things in and out of the cabinets. And I found that this cabinet will hold larger items that don't fit in the other cabinets.
Ignore this fact if you must, to do what your dreams are telling you to do. And I'll be out there looking for someone like you.
I know you're hurt.
We have all the paint supplies stored in this corner cabinet, and this corner cabinet is a little bit awkward. It's not something that we need to access very often, but this cabinet has the capacity to hold larger items, so I wanted to relocate the paint supplies so that I can store things that won't fit anywhere else. I have empty storage bins on top of the cabinets that I couldn't decide what to do with, so I'm going to try storing some of the tarps and drop cloths in them, and because the drop cloths take up half the space in this cabinet, I'll have more room to store things that we need to get to more often. I have no idea what these blue bags are for or why we have them. They're something my husband wants to keep, so I just need to find a place for them. Because these bins are stored on top of the cabinets, I'd want to fill them with things that we don't need to access on a regular basis. And I want to fill them with items that aren't too heavy because I need to be able to lift them to put them away. A few years ago, we added this bank of cabinets and we did a major declutter, but when I put everything back into the cabinets, I really wasn't sure how the space was going to function. And at the time, I was just happy to get things back into the cabinets. But over time, I've learned what hasn't been working. Unlike my last video where I used the KonMari method, I'm going to be using a combination of methods for the garage. And although it's not going to turn out quite as pretty as the Home Edit, I am going to use their method of edit, categorize, contain, and maintain. But I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We may be overstocked in some areas, but I'll keep what we use even if it is a lifetime supply. The only thing left in these lower cabinets is paint supplies, and I think it might be a good place to keep all the things related to painting. I need to empty the cabinets so that I can clean off the shelves, and then I need to sort through everything so that I can reorganize what we have. I've been using these clear storage bins forever, and I've used them to contain the smaller supplies in the garage. And this bin contains paint supplies, but it's become overcrowded, so I'm going to create smaller subcategories so that I can divide them into smaller containers. I like to be able to grab one bin that has everything that I need, but I also don't want to waste time searching through a bin to find what I need. And I don't want to get too detailed and use too many bins either. Instead of having separate container for each type of paintbrush, I'll keep them together in one container.
Bound to make mistakes, real love we thought, but it was always on fire. Our house, our dream, we were dancing on wire, reckless it seemed. I never felt like this before.
I'm starting with this upper cabinet because it's in the worst shape and it contains things that we need to access the most often. And part of the reason this upper cabinet is so disorganized is because the containers that we have don't fit well in these newer cabinets. Most of what's in this cabinet is random hardware like ropes, hooks, staple guns, self-adhesive products, and I need to sort through and reorganize what I have and find a better storage solution to contain these products. And as I sort through everything, I'm getting rid of the bulky packaging to save space, and instead I'll keep things together in smaller baggies.
When I was trapped, you showed an open door. I had no reason to complain. I didn't have the words to explain.
I'm not a huge fan of these Rubbermaid boxes. They're great quality, but the lids are just too hard to remove. But they're still useful and they're expensive to replace, so I'm going to try and transfer the things that I want to keep into the matching containers. They stack better that way, and it looks better, and it's a small detail that can make a big difference.
Then we were dancing on a wire. Yeah, we were dancing on a wire. I was on a plane to California. I had all the time I'd ever need. Did you even know I was looking for you? I think that I was hiding in between. How long did you?
I have all the products for safety in this drawer, but it's too overcrowded, so I'm going to relocate them so that I can free up some space for things that we use more often. I'm going to move all the supplies into this empty cabinet for now, and I have the same problem with the tape in this drawer. I found tape all over the garage when we decluttered a few years ago, and I need to find a place to keep the tape, and I decided to put it in the safety cabinet, and as I move things around, I may find a better place later. I'm not going to work on this cabinet, but when I relocated the power tools, it freed up space to store all the buckets. And whenever we buy something that's packaged in a bucket, we save the buckets to use around the house. And I use them for everything, so I'm not going to edit my collection just yet, but it would be nice to have them all in one place so that they're easy to get to.
How long did you really need?
This cabinet contains all the gardening supplies, but it's disorganized and hard to find what we have, so we end up buying duplicates of things that we don't need, and the cabinet has become overcrowded, and I need to empty everything out of this cabinet so that I can sort and declutter anything we don't need, and once we use up some of the things that are overstocked, it should be easier to maintain. And because this cabinet is full of things that can leak, I have shelf liners to protect the shelves. And the shelves are unfinished pressboard, so I'm just going to shake out the liners and sweep up the loose debris. As I sort through everything, I'm only putting back the things that we need and use. There are some things in this cabinet that are being stored for a one-off project that just never gets done, because, well, out of sight is out of mind. So when I come across something that I need to take care of, I'm going to put it aside instead of putting it back into the cabinet.
Floating rivers upstream, the things that
I'm sorting things into categories like fertilizer and potting materials, and I'll condense duplicates so that I can try and get rid of any bulky packaging.
you would be leaving me just like the winner.
This box of fertilizer is almost empty, but I need the information that's on the box. So I decided to cut out the product information and get rid of the box so that I have more room in the cabinet.
Fully quiet and slow. I try my best to move on, to let go.
I used to have this tiered organizer under the sink, but it works great to contain the smaller items that would get lost on the shelf. And I could store them in a clear bin, but I like to store containers that have liquids in them upright so that they don't leak.
The problem is for me.
As I put things back into the cabinet, I wanted to try and keep each category together on the same shelf, and I did end up having to move things around the cabinet to find the best arrangement. And the shelves are adjustable, but the spacing between the shelves is pretty standard for the items in this cabinet, but I wanted more room above the basket for taller items.
Believe in me, so painfully quiet and slow. I try my best to move on, letting go. Letting go.
As I mentioned before, I use these buckets for everything, and I have some extra potting mix that I'm going to transfer into the bucket. It will be easier to get the bucket in and out of the cabinet, and it will keep the soil from spilling.
Just tell me and be honest. Tell me, did you know that you would be leaving me just like the winter snow? Tell me and be honest. Tell me, should have known that you'd be leaving me so painfully quiet and slow.
And to help maintain this cabinet, I'm going to add labels to all of the bins, but I want to give it some time to make sure that I don't need to make changes. And I'm going to add some post-it notes to the bins for now so that I don't forget what's in them. And the clear bins make it easy to find what you're looking for, but the labels will make it easy to put things away.
I try my best to move on, to let go.
These clear shoe boxes fit into the drawers perfectly, but they don't have dividers to separate the smaller items like batteries. And I had intended to return these organizers, but they got lost in the closet. And by the time I found them, it was too late to return them. And it turns out they fit inside these drawers perfectly, and they have adjustable dividers to separate between batteries. These Like It containers are designed to organize socks, but they work so well in these drawers that I wish I had more of them. And I originally found them on Amazon for a really great price, but the only place I can find them now is the Container Store.
There's a new day to take away your sorrow, and the old ways get washed out by the rain. Darling, you've got to keep holding on.
We have the same problem with this box of zip ties, so I'm going to sort them by size, and I'll use the same sock organizers to contain all the ties.
If you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day to leave behind your trouble.
This drawer contains random things that can be moved to a better location so that I can free up space in this drawer. And we keep tools in these drawers, but a few of the drawers are overcrowded, so I need to make space so that I can redistribute some of the tools. These drawers are lined with felt to keep things from sliding around in the drawer, but everything sticks to the felt and it makes it hard to clean. So I'm going to vacuum the loose debris before I put everything away.
Think of you and me.
I'm moving the contents up to a shallow drawer to make room for items that will fit better in this deep drawer.
Holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this. If you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day. It is waiting for us. There's a new day waiting round the bend. There's a new day, and it will restore us. There'll be new ways. This is not the end.
The top drawer in this toolbox is prime real estate, but we haven't had anything useful in it. So I cleared out the drawer so that I can add things that we use more often, and I just need to sort through everything that I want to keep in here so that I can decide how to organize it. I had a few organizers that I wasn't using, so I thought I would try them here, and they keep things from rolling around in the drawer, but I don't think it will stay like this. I don't feel like these particular organizers are durable enough for a toolbox, so I'll probably swap them out when I find something a little more durable. And after I shuffled things around the drawer about 100 times, I finally came up with a workable arrangement. These organizers are new, and I bought them because they fit into these upper cabinets, and I intended to use them for something completely different, but I needed something to keep the tape from getting pushed all over the cabinet, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the tape wasn't going to stay neatly stacked on the shelf, and these bins will make it easier to get to what we need, and it will be easier to maintain. I'm using Post-it notes to label the containers, and the containers are clear enough to see what's inside, so it's easy to find what we're looking for, but the labels will help make sure that things are put back in the right place, which will make it easier to maintain. But before I put the time and energy into making labels, I want to make sure that this space is working, and this cabinet turned out to be such a dramatic transformation, even though it's completely different than I had originally planned. I wanted to keep working on the upper cabinets, and I needed to relocate the contents of this upper shelf. There are things that we don't use very often, and it will make more sense to keep them in another location. I have tools for wallpaper that are related to paint, and because they both cover the walls, I decided to store them in the lower cabinet with the paint supplies. I've had these containers sitting in the garage for a while, and they came with a set of Christmas lights, but I thought I could use them in the garage because they fit perfectly in the upper cabinets, and they're a great size for what I need here. I'm going to transfer the masonry tools to this larger crate so that it's easier to see what we have, and we had these collapsible crates sitting in the closet that weren't being used, so instead of taking up space on the shelf, I'm going to put them to use to store the supplies in these lower cabinets.
I was never the one to write up a song for just anyone.
Because these cabinets are so narrow and deep, it will make it easy to slide the bin in and out to get to what we need. This cabinet is a bit overcrowded, so I'm going to thin out this cabinet by moving the paint thinners and the solvents to the lower cabinet so that they're with the rest of the paint supplies.
Back together.
Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.
I've been meaning to line these shelves forever, and I just never got around to it. So while the shelves are cleared out, I'm going to cut down a few pieces to cover the shelves.
I was never the one to give up the ghost. No, I was so stuck. I kept on playing my part, wanting to give up cause nothing was changing. But with you it's so clear, and now that you're here I see colors in every spectrum. Guess I finally learned my lesson. Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.
And the last two upper cabinets that I need to work on are related to cars. One is for cleaning them and the other one is for maintenance, and like everything else I need to sort through everything and reorganize. And the cabinet is messy, but it's one of the few cabinets that work well, so I'm just going to straighten it up and move some things around.
Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.
I moved some things out of this cabinet that were more closely related to cleaning so that I would have a little more breathing room in this cabinet.
Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.
Another place that I haven't utilized is the space on top of the cabinets. And I have bins that fit on top of the cabinets, but I haven't put anything in them. And I'm going to try and store the lightweight seasonal items that we don't need to access very often, so they'll be out of the way until we need them. I haven't touched these bins since we put them on top of the cabinets, so I'm going to wipe the dust off before I put them back. And I'm wiping down things as I go, but once I've finished, I'll clean more thoroughly. And I had to laugh because I leave labels on everything, and I just turn things around so that you can't see the labels. But one of these days I'm going to have to take the time and pull them all off. I have two cabinets left to work on, and the first cabinet has been storing empty bins and organizers that we're not using, but I've been moving everything that I don't know what to do with into this middle cabinet, and now I just need to sort through and organize what's left in here.
The roads that lay open are many. When
the power washer is technically a powered tool, so I reluctantly decided to store it with the power tools.
On my skin,
most of what's in this cabinet are extra parts for fixtures around the house, and it's the last bit that I need to sort through, and I was able to get rid of a lot from this group because we had a lot of parts for things that we just don't have anymore.
Not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Today is a good day to live. This morning has so clear a light as any to see the horizon and the far. Excuses were 2 for a penny, but they've all gone out the window of this car. And when I feel the wind on my face, all that ever was is a wreck. Today and not tomorrow.
to rearrange this cabinet so that it would be easier to access the dolly, and I moved anything to do with sports and leisure into this cabinet. So now I'm able to store the exercise mats and the workout DVDs so that they're easy to access. I will more than likely make a few changes here and there, but for now it's easy to see and manage what we have. And this was a big project, but I'm so happy it's finally done. And I'll leave you guys with the before and afters. And if you like this video, be sure and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, be sure and hit the subscribe button before you leave today. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.
Tomorrow, there's no time to borrow today. Well, something's gotta give today. It's a good